did talk to Josh earlier, and he mentioned one of the other skills he learned from you was doing woodwork.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I grew up in a house where if something broke, you either fixed it or tried to fix it. If you needed to build something, you just built it, because my father was an engineer. That's the way he thought about the world. Right. So I grew up, around tools, and I love them. I mean, I'm utterly fascinated by the tools that I've been able to acquire. I have a great time with them. But Josh didn't have much experience, and I made him help me build a dissection table.
That's cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. So we had this steel lab bench that had rusted out. So I took it to the sandblaster I know, and he sandblasted it off. And then I had him powder coat it with white. So it's a beautiful white metal bench with no top. And I had Josh come over, and I said, okay, we're going to build a top, and we're going to paint it with epoxy so that we'll be able to dissect in this white table. We'll have the white background. It'll be perfect for photographs and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So I still have paint spots on the driveway where we painted that thing with epoxy. That stuff never goes away. So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun.
When you take on a student like that and teach these skills, like, do you find that's part of your mentorship for graduate students? Because I mean, there's the mentorship of the knowledge and getting through a graduate degree, but there's also, a lot of times you see graduate students learning like oceanographic instrumentation, or how to jerry rig a trap, to catch hagfish or whatever you need to catch. Like, do you find that's part of sort of the unique attributes that you provide as a mentor, as a supervisor for your graduate students? And how important do you think that is for your graduate students?
Well, I think those are really good questions. I mean, I think the first reaction I'd have is that every student's unique, and for example, one of my students now has more time at sea than I'll ever have, right? I mean, he worked for NOAA for 10 years and he has more than 1,000 days at sea, which is just a lot of time at sea. And, so I'm never going to have that experience. But what I can help him with are things like, figure making is something that often falls to me to help with, because I like figures, and I think they're really important. And then in other cases, a student may have really excellent skills in tracking down literature, but not know how to organize that information in a way that could be most useful. So I think it depends on the student. And to a very large degree, I've been driven by the things that my students want to do. I got interested in ratfishes because Dominique wanted to study them, right? I find ratfishes fascinating, but it was Dominique that drove that. And just like the shark tooth work, that was Josh. He drove that. We had a lot of fun. I learned a ton. I think we corrected some mistakes in the literature. And I'm not working on shark teeth at the moment. And it's not because I'm not interested in them. It's because Josh isn't here, So, and I learned something about this from a very famous man named Steve Wainwright, who was at Duke University. And the man studied anything, whatever his students brought him. So he had students who worked on, for example, the holdfast of kelp. How do they stay attached to the bottom in these just ridiculous big currents that they're dealing with off the California coast? Another student who worked on anemones and how they react to different flow regimes in the water. And on and on and on. His students worked on a variety of different functional, anatomical, behavioral, whatever they happen to be, invertebrates, plants, whatever. And, he published a very important paper on shark skin, one of the most interesting papers ever written on shark skin, in my opinion, in which they showed the cross-helical striations of the collagen fibers in the skin. And that effectively allows the skin to operate something like an exotendon to move the tail back and forth. Very important paper, and it's cover of Science. But that's just one of dozens and dozens of things he did. And I don't know whether he told me this or whether one of his students told me this, but I always thought that was such an interesting way to lead your life, to let the students show you where you ought to go.